Welcome to Pody Says Malicious Compliance, where people conform to the letter, but not the spirit of the request. Want strict work hours? Okay, can do. I used to work in a mid-sized company in the engineering department. One of the managers started to get upset because if he walked around at exactly 8:30, our start time, everyone was not in their seats. He felt that engineers were being too lax with their time. The edict went out that all engineers had to be in their seats exactly at start time. I told my boss that I was not planning on complying because I was a salaried professional and expected to be treated as such, and if they didn't trust me to put in an honest week's work, then they should fire me instead of micromanaging me. The older and much wiser engineers took a different approach. They all showed up 5 minutes early to make sure they were in their seats at 8:30, but also set an alarm for 5 p.m. and would literally drop everything they were doing exactly at 5 p.m. and leave the building. Is the manager having a meeting that was supposed to end at 5 but is running a little late? No. At 5 p.m., a series of alarms would go off and everyone would stand up in the middle of the meeting to leave. Does operations need technical support at 4:55? They have exactly 5 minutes on the phone with the engineer before he will have to get off the phone. Is someone trying to discuss a work-related issue at 8:28? Better wait a couple minutes because no one in the engineering department is answering work-related questions for another 2 minutes. Our first reaction from a bunch of random letters is, group malicious compliance is the best type of compliance. Your little birdie says, this is the kind of malicious compliance I am here for. Then there was that time I was in a conference call while duck hunting. This took place maybe 2008. Was mid-double O's for sure. I was a manager, but had arranged time off to go duck hunting with friends. The day before I was to leave was pulled into a meeting due to an emergency, and there would be a war room conference call with other offices the day after. I had nothing to contribute nor deliver for this meeting. It was merely higher pay grade than me folks hashing out a problem and then issuing directives. I said no. I'm not canceling a trip I planned for over a year with friends I hadn't seen in an incredibly long time to sit and listen to people argue. I got different replies from my manager and his manager. By different, my manager was pleading. His manager basically said, show up or you're fired. I said, fine, I'll be on the conference call. Turns out, where we were hunting, I had cell signal. So I called in. During the meeting, my manager's manager called on me specifically to contribute. I figured he was making a point. I was talking and said, hang on a sec, and my friends and I started shooting. It was quick, there were 4 of us, 2 12-gauge shots each. I went back on to finish talking. I was asked, was there shooting? I said, yep, I'm duck hunting. Our regional VP asked, why are you on the call if you were off hunting? My reply was, I was told it's mandatory or I'm fired. My manager's manager began backpedaling and started saying I was a team player and knew the benefit, etc. Basically, he was told, we'll take this offline. First response from Kevlar954. I'd like to imagine the dog from NES Doug Hunt popped up and laughed at your manager. Plethorian chimes in, I took the weekly nationwide manager's call from the hot tub once. The VP asked, why do I hear water? I fessed up, and he asked if I thought it was appropriate. I reminded him that I traveled 90% of the time, and when I had a chance to be home and relax, I was going to take it. He conceded the point, and asked if I had any other input for the meeting. I suggested not having the weekly calls on Friday afternoons would be better for everyone involved. We moved the calls to Tuesdays. Needless to say, the policy didn't last very long. You cannot spend $50 on a haircut. When I worked as an engineer at a Canadian telecoms company, I was deployed for several months in Brazil. After 2 months staying at a hotel at the business area of Sao Paulo City, I urgently needed a haircut. Being the expensive business zone I was located, there was a haircut place next to my hotel, and I decided to walk downstairs and get the haircut there. They charged $50 for a male haircut. I had to pay and left. When the accountant lady reviewed my expense report, she said you cannot submit such expensive haircuts. Cue malicious compliance. 2 months later, I had to cut my hair again. I took a $25 taxi to a barbershop in a mall some kilometers away, cut my hair for $25, enjoyed the walk and had dinner, and went back on another taxi for $25, plus the 2 taxis I took earlier that day to go to the customer office. When the accountant lady asked why I took 4 taxis on the same day, my response was, you told me I cannot spend $50 on a haircut, so I had to look for a barbershop on a cheaper area of the city. She didn't bother me again. Do not reiterate thinks, National Guard once made me wait a day for a cheaper flight, failing to realize that 1 extra day extended me long enough to qualify me for a different type of housing allowance and qualify me for a family separation pay. They did get the flight for about $140 less, but ended up payment about $1,200 more. Coder Joe 1 says, expense policy is often bereft of logic. I once booked a tiny hotel room in New York City next to the client's facility I needed to visit, but my boss's boss said it was way too expensive and had our travel department move me to a cheaper hotel. The rate at the new hotel was $23 less per night. I had to spend nearly $40 by taxi to visit the client facility each way. Half of my team was allowed to stay at the close hotel. It made no sense. I want a Wi-Fi point and I don't care how you do it. Don't care, huh? I was the lone IT guy at a school, and we had a new deputy principal start. People used to refer to him as the blue sky guy, meaning that he would say all these amazing things are going to be happening, but then not do anything to set them in motion. Then, of course, get angry when it doesn't happen. One day he says to me, "I want a Wi-Fi point in my office." I said, "Well, there is one in the room next door, and I can see that you have full bars on your laptop, so there's no need for one." He, of course, did not like this and demanded that I install the Wi-Fi point in his office. The thing is, his office was tacked onto the side of the building a few years prior, and only had one network point that his voice-over IP phone was plugged into. Now, anyone who works in IT long enough can tell you that there is a second pass-through network port on the phone where you can plug in a network cable. But then, I would also need a power injector to power the Wi-Fi point, and it would then be limited to 100 megabits instead of 1000 megabits. So, installing one in his office was not only unnecessary, but it would also be slower for anyone who connected to it. I try to explain all this to him, and he just cuts me off. "I want a Wi-Fi point, and I don't care how you do it." So, cue malicious compliance. I screwed the Wi-Fi point to his roof and ran the network cable down the wall and sticky taped the end of the cable to the back of his desk where he can't see. Sure, he had a Wi-Fi point, but it wasn't plugged into anything. About 1 year later, he said, "I noticed that all the other Wi-Fi points have a light on, and mine doesn't." "Oh, it's just that you have so many windows in here, it can be hard to see the light." He left a few months later, and the staff threw a mini party. I then took the Wi-Fi point down and put it into storage. His replacement has not had any Wi-Fi issues in the past 2 years. Eyes Made of Wood chimed in, "I would have immediately just taken the electronics out of a Wi-Fi access point and installed the empty shell on the ceiling without any wires whatsoever." "Why is there no network cable?" You wanted Wi-Fi, right?" "Oh, right." A Hugh C11 says, "I work in IT as well. I love the IT malicious compliance from the IT world. Nothing like working for people that don't know how things work can be infuriating, but fun." New boss doesn't understand. Yet. I've seen quite a few stories like this recently and thought I'd share mine. I had been working a role in a supply company for around 2 years when this took place. I was the person who took all incoming phone calls, walk-in customers, most orders, and a list of other responsibilities. I was also the person people would unload their work onto, and being young and naive, I let it happen. To compensate for the insane workload, I would usually stay until 6 p.m., with a couple days a week having to stay until around 8 p.m., all unpaid as I was salaried from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. I had recently started biking to work, about 30 minutes commute each way, and would change when I got to work at 7:15. Unfortunately, our boss who had been with the company for 15 plus years was moving on, and they had recently hired an outside replacement. New boss, NB, was only a couple of years older than myself, younger than most staff, and had come from a large retail chain where metrics were a big deal. One day I arrived at 7:15 as usual, and was met with a group of customers all waiting out front to collect orders, make orders, and discuss accounts. As the only person in the building till around 10 a.m., I started working my way through each customer, without having time to get changed. This wasn't a problem as all our customers were in work gear and just wanted to get in and out as quickly as possible. This carried on all morning. I hadn't even sat down on my computer yet and was firing my way through customers at a great pace. People started rolling in, making their coffees and logging into their computers. I was not offered any help, as was standard. 10 a.m. rolls around. I have several customers nonstop for close to 3 hours and had yet to get a chance to change. This is when new boss arrives. He goes into his office, I assume logs into his computer, checks some emails, etc. I see one of my coworkers enter his office and return to their desk, but think nothing of it, as I still have 2 or 3 customers standing at my desk while I sort them out. I had just finished with a customer when said coworker offers to help with the other 2. Great! I think I can get changed and log into my computer finally. Instead, new boss comes up to me, within earshot of the customers and other coworkers, and asks why I'm not changed, as it's now 10:30 a.m. He then tells me he's had complaints that I had been late. I admittedly had arrived around 5 minutes late a couple days, due to flat tires and once being knocked off my bike. I explain I have yet to get a chance. He tells me I should be changed and ready to serve customers by 7:15 a.m., and it is unprofessional to be in my biking gear. This is likely due to how I usually dress. See, we did not have a uniform or dress code. My coworkers wore jeans and hoodies, and an assortment of comfortable clothing. I myself, wanting to dress for the career you want, not the one you would have. Would wear dress shoes, pants, and a button-down shirt. Cue my compliance. The next day I arrive at 7 a.m. I changed in my jeans and a hoodie. I opened at 7:30. After logging in, checking emails, and making a coffee. I then took my lunch break, the full hour which I had yet to do in the previous 2 years. I then logged out at 3:59 and was out the door by 4 p.m. I continued to do this for most of the time I worked there, later dropping my lunch break to keep up with the workload. But the company probably lost about 16 hours of work each week, a full 2 workdays worth. The new boss ended up realizing I was actually the only person doing the majority of the company's front-facing work and eventually relaxed. We are actually friends now, but I still give him crap about how they essentially made me quit my unpaid part-time job for working too hard. Green Egg Page says, "Never work for free. I'm an employer and I tell all of my employees to never work for free. You have value. You are selling your time, skills, and knowledge to your employer. Do not give them anything for free. Additionally, if you are injured while off the clock, that causes big issues for your claim." OP responds, "Yeah, luckily I have matured since then. Left them to get my degree after a bunch of shady stuff happened during COVID."